Silence is often misunderstood in the modern world. People equate it with emptiness, passivity, or lack of expression. Yet silence in its truest form is none of these. It is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of awareness. It is the space where all things emerge and dissolve. When a person begins to understand silence, not as a void but as a living force, they begin to discover the subtle power that has always been guiding their existence from within. The mind, which constantly seeks stimulation, struggles to comprehend this power. But beneath the endless noise of thoughts, reactions, and desires lies something deeper, something unshakable, silence itself. To touch silence is to meet yourself beyond identity. The one who is silent does not seek to prove, to explain, or to defend. In silence, the need to be understood disappears because understanding arises naturally from presence. The power of silence is not in doing but in being. It transforms the energy that is usually scattered through unnecessary words and endless mental chatter into focus, clarity, and inner strength. When the mind becomes quiet, perception sharpens. You begin to see things as they are, not as you want them to be. This clarity brings peace that cannot be disturbed by circumstances because it comes from within, not from external validation. In silence, you start to feel the rhythm of life itself. Every breath becomes noticeable, every movement meaningful. The body moves not from tension but from awareness. This stillness allows energy to circulate more harmoniously, creating balance between the physical, emotional, and spiritual dimensions. The more one cultivates silence, the more attuned they become to the subtle language of the universe, the way energy flows, how emotions rise and fall, how intuition whispers before thought begins. The loudness of the world cannot touch the one who has learned to be silent inside, for their strength no longer depends on outer control but on inner stability. The human mind is a restless instrument. It feeds on noise. It constantly wants to fill every moment with something. Music, conversation, distraction, thought. The silence that surrounds us often feels uncomfortable, even threatening, because it reveals what we have been avoiding ourselves. To sit in silence is to come face to face with your fears, your doubts, your desires, and the endless narrative of who you think you are. But if you can stay with it, not escape, not fight, not interpret, just stay, you will find that beneath the turbulence there is a still center, like the calm at the bottom of the ocean. That is the essence of silence. True silence is not about escaping the world, it is about engaging with it more deeply. When you act from silence, your actions are no longer reactions, they are expressions of consciousness. Every word spoken from that state carries weight, not because it is loud or forceful, but because it arises from depth. A single word from a silent mind can change an atmosphere, while 1,000 noisy words from a restless mind create only confusion. This is why silence has power. It is not weak, it is not empty, it is full of potential energy, waiting to be directed with purpose. Silence refines perception. It teaches patience. It reveals truth that cannot be found through argument or debate. The more you speak, the less you hear. The more you listen, the more you know. In silence, listening becomes sacred. You begin to hear not only sounds, but the spaces between them. You begin to sense the energy behind people's words, the emotions hidden beneath appearances. Silence sharpens empathy. For when the mind is quiet, the heart becomes active. You begin to feel the interconnectedness of all things without needing to explain it. In moments of great silence, time seems to stop. The division between past and future fades away, and you rest in the eternal now. This is where creativity is born, where intuition becomes clear, and where peace is no longer something to achieve, but something to recognize. The power of silence is that it connects you to what is eternal, beyond the temporary fluctuations of emotion or circumstance. When you live from that place, you become less reactive, less afraid, and more open to the flow of life as it is. Silence also has a cleansing effect. Just as still water reflects the sky clearly, a silent mind reflects reality without distortion. In the noise of constant thought, perception becomes clouded, decisions are driven by impulse and fear. But in silence, awareness purifies itself. You begin to see your own conditioning, how much of your life is shaped by habit, expectation, and borrowed belief. Silence burns away the unnecessary. It shows you that you don't need to chase meaning. Meaning arises naturally when you stop resisting life. In every spiritual tradition, silence has been regarded as the doorway to wisdom. The sages, monks, and masters did not seek silence for its own sake, They sought it because it is the natural state of consciousness when it is free from distraction. In silence, one realizes that truth does not need to be spoken to exist. It is already there, always present, waiting to be experienced directly. The words that arise after silence are not mere explanations. They are expressions of lived understanding. When you begin to cultivate silence in your daily life, even in small moments, between breaths, between thoughts, between conversations, you start to feel a subtle shift. The world does not seem as heavy, people's opinions lose their grip, and your reactions become more deliberate. You no longer feel the urge to fill every space with words. You begin to appreciate pauses, to trust stillness, to see beauty in simplicity. The noise of the external world remains, but it no longer dominates your inner world. You carry your silence with you like a calm flame that nothing can extinguish. The power of silence is not something you acquire. It is something you uncover. It was there before your first thought, before your first word, before your first fear. It is the essence of awareness itself, waiting patiently beneath the layers of noise and identity. And once you have tasted its depth, you realize that silence was never empty. It was full of everything you have been searching for. Doubt is not the enemy many believe it to be. It is, in truth, a mirror reflecting the unseen corners of our own being. When doubt appears, it is not a sign of weakness, but of awareness, an indication that something within us is awakening, questioning, and searching for truth beyond the surface. The mind that never doubts is not always a strong mind. Sometimes it is merely a closed one. To live with consciousness is to encounter doubt because awareness reveals the contradictions we carry, the fears we suppress, and the beliefs we have inherited without examination. When a person experiences doubt, the natural instinct is to push it away. We are taught to replace uncertainty with confidence, confusion with clarity, questions with answers. But true growth rarely arises from instant clarity. It begins with the willingness to remain in uncertainty, to stand in front of the mirror of doubt and look deeply at what it reflects. Doubt shows us where our faith is fragile, where our convictions are untested, and where our identity clings to illusions of control. If we are brave enough to look, we will see that doubt is not against us. It is guiding us toward what is real. Doubt often arrives when life no longer fits the shape of our understanding. It visits in moments of transition when we outgrow old beliefs, old relationships, old patterns. It shakes the foundation we have built because something in us knows that the foundation was never as solid as we thought. The discomfort that doubt brings is not punishment. It is the friction of growth. The seed that begins to sprout must break the shell that once protected it. In that moment of breaking, there is both pain and freedom. Doubt performs this same function within consciousness. It cracks open the hardened shell of certainty so that something new can emerge. But many are afraid of doubt. They rush to silence it by clinging to dogma, authority, or external validation. They prefer the comfort of answers over the liberation of inquiry. Yet in doing so, they miss the wisdom hidden in the question itself. The mind that seeks immediate reassurance becomes dependent, never learning to stand in its own knowing. Doubt, when observed with patience, becomes a teacher of trust, not blind trust in others, but deep trust in one's inner perception. To watch doubt without reacting to it is to strengthen awareness itself. The stillness required to hold uncertainty without panic becomes the ground of spiritual maturity. In the Shaolin tradition, the warrior does not reject fear or hesitation. He studies them. He allows them to reveal his attachments and expectations. Similarly, the wise person studies doubt. When doubt appears, it points toward the gap between knowledge and experience. It says, "Here is a place where you have not yet seen clearly." In this way, doubt is a compass pointing toward deeper understanding. The problem is not doubt itself, but our resistance to it. When we resist, the mirror becomes distorted. When we accept, the reflection becomes clear. There are two kinds of doubt: destructive doubt and illuminating doubt. Destructive doubt arises from the ego's desire for control. It feeds on comparison, fear, and insecurity. It whispers, "You are not enough. You cannot do this." It paralyzes action because it is rooted in self-judgment. But illuminating doubt arises from the soul's curiosity. It asks, "Is this true? Is this aligned? Is there more to see?" It does not attack. It inquires. It does not shrink you. It expands your perception. When doubt is used in this higher way, it becomes a doorway rather than a wall. To transform doubt, one must not fight it but bring awareness to it. Sit with it in silence. Observe its movement. Where does it arise? What emotion fuels it? What belief does it challenge? Often, doubt reveals attachment. Attachment to how things should be, to who we think we are, or to what we believe must happen. When those attachments are questioned, the mind becomes anxious. But if you allow the questioning to continue without rushing to conclusion, something profound occurs. The attachment loosens. You begin to see that doubt was not attacking you, it was asking you to release what no longer serves your truth. In meditation, doubt can appear as restlessness or disbelief in the process. The mind begins to argue, this is pointless. Nothing is happening. But if you breathe through it, the surface noise begins to fade and a subtle awareness begins to rise, an awareness that is beyond both doubt and belief. This is the space where the mirror dissolves, and what remains is pure seeing. In this clarity, you understand that doubt was a reflection of your own limited perspective, not an external force trying to defeat you. The wise do not run from doubt, nor do they worship certainty. They learn to dwell in the open space between the two. They use doubt to polish the mirror of their consciousness, removing the dust of false assumptions. Every time doubt arises and is faced consciously, understanding deepens. The heart becomes more grounded, the mind more fluid. Doubt ceases to be a storm and becomes a breeze that clears the air. Doubt teaches humility. It reminds us that what we know is never complete, that truth is not a possession but a process of unfolding. To meet doubt with awareness is to remain a student of life, open to correction, expansion, and transformation. It prevents arrogance, keeps us alert, and invites sincerity. When you learn to see doubt as a mirror, you no longer fear it. You use it to see yourself clearly, to refine your path, to purify your motives. And so the next time doubt arises, instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this showing me? Look into the reflection without judgment. See the parts of yourself that seek reassurance, control, or approval. Watch how the mind tries to escape the discomfort. Notice how the body reacts. Stay with it long enough and the reflection begins to soften. What once appeared as confusion begins to reveal understanding. What once felt like an obstacle becomes a doorway into deeper awareness. Doubt was never here to destroy your peace. It was here to reveal the truth that peace does not depend on certainty at all in life. It is easy to speak of change. It is easy to discuss plans, to dream aloud, and to convince oneself that talking about a new direction is the same as walking it. The mind finds comfort in words. They are soft, effortless, and they create the illusion of progress. But real movement is not born in words. It emerges from action. It emerges when words are silenced, when the breath deepens, and when the body begins to move in alignment with intention. Words can inspire, but only action transforms. There are people who read about discipline, who speak of balance, who promise themselves they will rise early, meditate, or train tomorrow. Yet, tomorrow becomes another word, another concept, another delay. In this way, words can become a trap, gentle, poetic, and deceptive. The more we speak about what we will do, the less energy remains for doing it. This is the weight of unexpressed action, the heaviness of potential energy that has not been converted into form. In the Shaolin tradition, there is no value in empty speech. To speak of patience without practicing stillness is hollow. To speak of humility without serving others is noise. To speak of strength without training the body and mind is only imagination. Action is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between intention and manifestation. Without it, even the purest desire fades into air, and even the strongest will becomes dull. Action is the rhythm of life. Every living being moves, acts, and responds. The sun rises not by speaking of rising, but by rising. The river does not talk about flowing, it flows. The wind does not announce its arrival, it moves through the trees without permission. In this same way, the human being must learn to embody movement without waiting for perfect words. It is through repetition, through persistence, through falling and standing again that transformation occurs. The true language of mastery is not spoken, it is performed. Action is also the highest form of truth. One can pretend with words, but never with consistent action. What you do repeatedly reveals your real understanding. It reveals your discipline, your priorities, your internal state. A person who trains daily, even in silence, speaks more about commitment than the one who proclaims determination loudly. Words fade in the wind, but action leaves footprints in the earth. When you move with purpose, the universe listens, not to your voice, but to your vibration. In silence, before each action, there is a small gap, the moment of decision. It is in that gap that the inner battle is fought. The mind whispers reasons to wait, to prepare, to think a little longer, but the spirit knows that movement itself creates clarity. When you act, the path unfolds. When you hesitate, the path dissolves. Inaction feeds confusion. Action sharpens vision. To take even a small step forward with awareness is better than standing still with perfect plans. The warrior does not speak of courage, he acts courageously. The monk does not speak of peace, he practices it through breath, through mindfulness, through the repetition of presence. The artist does not speak of creation, she creates. It is the same energy expressed through different forms, yet all share one truth: action is devotion. It is the offering of energy to life itself. Every small act done with awareness becomes a meditation in motion, a dialogue between the self and existence. Action also refines the self. Through doing, the individual meets resistance, both external and internal. These moments of friction reveal the true nature of one's mind. When tiredness arises, when doubt appears, when the body resists, the conscious individual learns to continue. Through repetition and endurance, one learns that mastery is not given, it is cultivated. And it is cultivated not through thought, but through the physical expression of intention again and again. There is a story told in many traditions. A student approaches the master and asks for enlightenment. The master does not answer with words. He hands the student a broom and tells him to sweep the courtyard. The student does not understand, but he obeys. He sweeps in silence day after day until the act itself becomes his meditation. Through that movement, through the rhythm of doing without question, the student begins to understand. It is not in the speaking of wisdom that enlightenment occurs. It is in the living of it. Every act contains a vibration. When you move with awareness, you transmit energy into the world. When you move without awareness, you scatter it. That is why the quality of your action matters more than its appearance. Even the smallest task, when performed with presence, carries great power. To walk mindfully, to breathe consciously, to speak truthfully. These are all forms of action that change the atmosphere around you. They shape not only your environment but your inner frequency. Action is also a mirror. It reflects back to you the depth of your understanding. If your actions are inconsistent, your inner world is divided. If your actions are steady, your mind is unified. The body always reveals the truth the tongue tries to hide. That is why great teachers often say little. They allow their movement, their work, their energy to speak for them. The silence of action speaks louder than the noise of untested words. Words have their place. They can guide, inspire, and connect. But they must always lead to embodiment. Without embodiment, wisdom remains a shadow of itself. To act is to test one's philosophy against the reality of life. It is to take knowledge out of the mind and anchor it in the soil of experience. Through this process, the self evolves from knowing to being. Action demands consistency, not perfection. The smallest consistent effort, done with sincerity, shapes destiny more than the grandest speech ever spoken. Each day that you act according to your intention, the gap between who you are and who you wish to be becomes smaller. In this way, the invisible becomes visible, the abstract becomes tangible, and thought becomes creation. There is a profound stillness that arises after true action, the kind that comes not from words, but from alignment between will and movement. When intention, breath, and motion merge, there is no longer separation between the door and the doing. This is the essence of discipline. This is the quiet language through which the universe understands you. In a world that glorifies constant movement, endless goals, and the ceaseless pursuit of success, stillness has become something rare, almost forgotten. Yet, stillness is not the absence of progress, it is the foundation upon which true progress stands. Many believe that motion equals advancement, but what they do not see is that without inner clarity, every step forward can just as easily lead you astray. Inner stillness is not about retreating from life. It is about moving through it with awareness, grace, and purpose. It is the quiet space where your energy regathers, your mind realigns, and your actions find direction. When the mind is noisy, filled with scattered thoughts, comparisons, and constant mental chatter, you lose connection with your inner compass. You move, yes, but without understanding why. You chase achievements, validation, and distractions, but still feel a lingering emptiness when you reach the end. inner stillness removes the fog. It allows you to hear the whisper of intuition that has always guided you, though often drowned out by the outer world's volume. When you cultivate inner stillness, you start operating from clarity rather than confusion, from strength rather than struggle. You begin to realize that real progress is not a race but a rhythm, a natural unfolding aligned with your deeper self. The Shaolin masters understand this deeply. Their stillness is not passive, it is alive. When they stand unmoving, it is not because they are doing nothing, it is because they are becoming everything. Their breathing slows, their senses heighten, and their energy begins to expand inwardly. This stillness gathers power, and that power later expresses itself as focused action. The same principle applies to all aspects of life. The busier you become, the more essential stillness is. The more noise you encounter, the more silence you must cultivate. Just as a lake reflects the sky only when its surface is calm, your mind can only reflect truth when it is still. Stillness is misunderstood because society celebrates the visible, the doing, the talking, the producing, but neglects the invisible source behind them. Every great act begins in stillness. Every invention, every insight, every movement toward transformation begins in a quiet moment when the mind is free from distraction. The most powerful changes are born from within, in the moments when you stop forcing outcomes and begin allowing them. In stillness, you reconnect to the natural intelligence of life itself, the same intelligence that makes trees grow, rivers flow, and hearts beat without command. When you practice inner stillness, you train your awareness to detach from constant reaction. You no longer get pulled into every emotion, every comment, every external disturbance. You begin to respond instead of react, and in that gap between reaction and response lies mastery. It is in that silence that your power gathers. The person who can remain still when provoked is not weak, they are unshakable. Their peace cannot be taken because it does not depend on external conditions. This is the beginning of real strength, the kind that does not need to shout, prove, or dominate. In daily life, stillness is found in moments of conscious pause, in deep breathing before speaking, in observation before judgment, in reflection before decision. It is not about isolating yourself from the world, but moving through it with calm presence. The more stillness you cultivate inside, the more ordered your outer world becomes. Chaos outside often mirrors chaos within. When your inner world is quiet and steady, your decisions become precise, your relationships deepen, and your path becomes clear. You stop wasting energy on unnecessary conflicts and redirect it toward meaningful action. This is how stillness translates into progress, by turning inward confusion into outward clarity. Inner stillness also refines perception. When the mind is turbulent, perception is distorted. You see threats where there are none, obstacles where there are opportunities. But when the mind is calm, perception becomes sharp and accurate. You see reality as it is, not as your fears project it to be. This clarity allows you to navigate challenges with wisdom instead of resistance. You stop trying to control everything and begin to flow with the rhythm of life. Progress then becomes effortless because it arises from alignment, not struggle. The modern mind is addicted to noise. People wake up and immediately reach for their devices, feeding on constant stimulation. Yet this habit drains focus and scatters attention. The more noise you consume, the less space remains for insight. Stillness, on the other hand, is where insight is born. When you allow silence to enter your day, you create space for understanding, for creativity, for guidance. The greatest answers often arrive not when you are searching for them, but when you are still enough to receive them. The paradox of stillness is that it is both an ending and a beginning. It is the end of inner chaos, but the beginning of conscious evolution. It teaches patience, presence, and perspective, qualities that transform how you approach everything in life. In stillness, time slows down, and you see that what you were chasing has been within you all along. Every breath becomes an anchor. Every pause becomes a doorway to depth. As you cultivate inner stillness, outer progress unfolds naturally. You begin to move with intention, not haste. You learn that progress is not measured by how fast you move, but by how aligned you are as you move. The quiet mind directs the focused hand. The calm heart sustains consistent effort. True mastery arises when motion and stillness work together, when your actions emerge from peace rather than pressure. Inner stillness does not stop the flow of life, It allows life to flow through you with greater power, balance, and awareness in a world that celebrates breakthroughs, loud success, and overnight transformations. The quiet force of consistency is often overlooked. Yet it is this very silence, this calm repetition of effort that shapes the strongest foundations. Consistency does not shout, it whispers. It does not demand attention, it earns respect. It is the discipline that moves unseen beneath the surface, building the unshakable structure upon which mastery rests. Every skill, every transformation, every victory is built upon countless small actions, repeated with patience, humility, and unwavering commitment. The human mind is drawn to excitement. It seeks the new, the extraordinary, the moment of change. But the universe does not operate in sudden leaps. It moves in rhythm cycles and patterns. The sun rises not in haste. The river carves stone not in a single strike, and the seed becomes a tree not overnight, but through quiet persistence. Consistency is that same natural rhythm within human life. It is alignment with the steady pulse of growth that governs all creation. When one becomes consistent, one is no longer forcing change, but flowing with the energy that naturally leads toward evolution. To be consistent is to make peace with repetition. It is to understand that greatness is born not from bursts of inspiration, but from sustained presence. The warrior who trains daily, even when no battle awaits, builds not just strength, but inner steadiness. The artist who paints without applause learns to see beauty in the process rather than the outcome. The monk who meditates through long hours of silence sharpens awareness not through intensity, but through constancy. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is sacred. It teaches the discipline of staying with the path, even when the mind grows restless and the heart doubts the destination. Many people confuse motivation with consistency. Motivation is the spark, it ignites the fire. But consistency is the wood that keeps the fire alive. Motivation fluctuates, it is subject to emotion, mood, and circumstance. Consistency, however, is a choice made beyond emotion. It is a decision to show up regardless of feeling, to move forward regardless of resistance. The one who learns to act without waiting for inspiration becomes unstoppable. For in the absence of consistency, motivation burns out quickly, leaving only ashes of unfulfilled intentions. Consistency requires humility. It asks you to step into the ordinary, to repeat actions that seem small, unimportant, even boring. It demands that you surrender the desire for instant recognition. The ego resists this. It craves results and validation. But the consistent one learns that the journey itself is the teacher. Each day of effort refines patience. Each repetition sharpens focus. Each step taken in silence builds inner strength. Over time, this humility transforms into quiet confidence. Not the arrogance of achievement, but the grounded certainty that growth is inevitable for one who does not stop walking. In the physical world, consistency builds strength. In the mental world, it builds clarity. In the spiritual world, it builds presence. To return each day to the same practice, be it movement, breath, or meditation, is to cultivate an unbreakable bond between intention and action. The more consistent one becomes, the more the inner and outer worlds begin to align. Thoughts, words, and actions begin to reflect one another. Life itself starts to move in harmony with the rhythm of purpose. The power of consistency lies in its subtlety. Its results often remain hidden for a long time, which is why many abandon the path too soon. But those who remain find that time becomes an ally rather than an enemy. Like water wearing down stone, small actions compounded through days, months, and years create profound transformation. There is no moment when the mountain suddenly becomes lower or the tree suddenly becomes tall. The change happens quietly, invisibly, until one day the transformation can no longer be ignored. Consistency is also a mirror. It reflects your relationship with yourself. If your efforts are scattered, your results will be scattered. If your actions are aligned, your life will move in coherence. To be consistent is to honor your word to yourself, to make a promise and keep it, even when no one is watching. It builds integrity, not as an external virtue, but as an internal truth. Each time you follow through, you tell yourself, I am reliable, I can trust myself. This trust is the true foundation of confidence. There are moments when consistency feels heavy, when progress seems invisible and the heart wonders if the effort is worthwhile. Yet, this is the moment when transformation is closest. The resistance you feel is not a sign of failure, but a test of endurance. It asks, can you hold your ground? Can you remain faithful to your practice when results have not yet appeared? This is where the silent warrior within awakens. Not through aggression or defiance, but through stillness and persistence. The silent warrior does not rush, he endures. He does not seek to conquer time, he walks with it. To embody consistency is to live with rhythm, patience, and trust. It is to honor the process over the promise. It is to find meaning in the daily act of returning to the breath, to the path, to the purpose. In this return lies mastery. In this repetition lies refinement. In this silence lies power. The consistent one learns that the universe itself rewards endurance, that unseen forces align with those who move steadily toward their purpose. Over time, consistency becomes more than discipline. It becomes identity. It is no longer an effort but a way of being. The one who has walked the same path for years develops not just skill but presence. Every movement becomes mindful, every action infused with quiet strength. The silent warrior has no need to announce his journey, his very being communicates it. His consistency has shaped him from within, carving patience into his bones and focus into his breath. The world may celebrate the loud achievers, the moments of sudden victory, but beneath every visible success lies an invisible trail of consistent effort. It is not noise but rhythm, not force but flow, not speed but steadiness that defines true power. The silent warrior does not fight against time. He moves with it, trusting that each small act, repeated with awareness, carries the energy of transformation. In a world that glorifies noise, many have mistaken visibility for value and words for wisdom. Yet true mastery does not need a spotlight, nor does it seek validation. It reveals itself quietly through consistency, precision, and the invisible discipline behind each effortless movement. Mastery does not speak of itself. It simply exists as a silent force that cannot be denied. It is like the mountain, unmoved by storms, unconcerned with applause, standing as a testament to time, patience, and endurance. To announce mastery is to betray it. The moment one seeks to prove superiority, one has already lost connection to the very essence of what mastery represents. The master no longer performs to impress. He acts because action itself has become an expression of his being. His movements are not practiced for recognition, but because they are as natural as breathing. To reach that level requires years of discipline, failure, correction, and humility. The student who constantly seeks to declare mastery still remains enslaved by the ego that craves recognition. True mastery begins with obedience to structure, to repetition, to correction. It is the quiet devotion to refining a single movement, thought, or breath until every unnecessary element has fallen away. The master does not add complexity, he removes it. In that reduction, simplicity becomes the highest sophistication. Mastery, therefore, is not the result of ambition, but of surrender. It is the point where the individual no longer seeks to dominate the skill, but allows the skill to shape him. Through repetition, through stillness, through failure, he becomes the art itself. In the Shaolin tradition, mastery is not displayed through words, but through energy. When a master enters a space, there is no need for introduction. The air itself changes. You can feel the depth of his training in the way he breathes, the way he stands, the silence between his movements. That stillness is not emptiness, it is control. It is the result of countless hours spent facing his own weaknesses, confronting the limits of body and mind. Such mastery is earned in solitude, far away from spectators and noise. Those who truly know understand that mastery is invisible. It hides in the details, the small corrections, the subtle pauses, the measured responses. The beginner looks for grand gestures, but the master sees the perfection in what is almost imperceptible. He refines not to be admired, but because perfection itself demands no audience. His standard is internal, not external. He measures his progress not against others, but against his own potential. To compare oneself is to misunderstand the path, for mastery is deeply personal and endlessly evolving. Ego often disguises itself as confidence. Many speak loudly of their abilities, displaying fragments of knowledge without depth of understanding. But those who have truly gone deep realize that knowledge expands faster than they can contain it, and the more they learn, the less they claim to know. The wise man does not declare himself wise because he sees the infinite nature of ignorance. Similarly, the master does not declare mastery because he recognizes how boundless refinement truly is. To reach a high level is not the end, it is the beginning of a deeper exploration. Mastery humbles. It dismantles the ego that once fueled the pursuit. In the early stages, ambition drives practice. The practitioner trains to become skilled, to be recognized, to rise above others. But over time, ambition dissolves, leaving behind only dedication. The one who was once desperate to prove now simply is. He no longer practices to win. He practices because he has found meaning in the practice itself. Mastery transforms desire into devotion and effort into being. The proof of mastery lies not in what one does, but in what one no longer needs to do. The master no longer explains his choices, nor does he justify his actions. His results speak in the silence between words. When you witness mastery, you do not need to be told. It reveals itself in the precision of motion, the calm in chaos, the unwavering focus amidst distraction. It is not a title to be given. It is a state of presence to be embodied. Every master was once a student who refused to quit. Beneath the surface of mastery lies an ocean of repetition, disappointment, and rebuilding. Each failure carved the vessel that could hold greater understanding. Each mistake revealed a deeper layer of truth. The one who persists through this process, without the need for applause, begins to radiate quiet strength. That strength is not loud. It does not need to be. It simply commands respect through its steadiness. Mastery is not about arrival but continuation. The journey never ends. The depth simply increases. The true master remains a student forever, open to learning, open to correction, open to the infinite refinement of self. This humility sustains growth. When you meet someone who still practices as though they are just beginning, even after decades, you are in the presence of mastery. Their repetition is not from ignorance but from reverence, for they understand that depth is hidden in simplicity, and that one lifetime is not enough to touch the fullness of any art. In the end, mastery speaks in silence. It moves without effort, teaches without words, and influences without intention. The presence of mastery cannot be faked because it is not built on performance. It is built on being. It cannot be worn like a mask or spoken into existence. It must be lived moment by moment, breath by breath, through years of unseen work and quiet surrender.